Now today, I'm going to be doing some very odd money-making methods. Like to begin with here, I'm going to intentionally rot my food to sell for profit. I know, rotten food, I mean like whoever would want this? But it turns out some people do. So thanks to the collecting community, I can sell rotten food to another player and then we'll buy it for like 3,000 or 4,000 gold each. Now, why, you might ask, is someone buying a completely useless piece of rotten food? Well, to collect it, and the reason that's actually valuable, this item is not tradable on the Grand Exchange. You can trade it person to person, but not sellable, which makes it a lot rarer and harder to obtain, and that is why it actually has some value. So today I'm going to be trying out a bunch of wacky money-making methods with the same premise in mind. So I scoured through the burnt item Discord. There will be a link in the description for that if you want to look at what people are trying to buy or sell, or if you just want to check them out. Link in the description. Now there are a lot of interesting items here that you might be able to make some profit by collecting. Rotting food is something that kind of caught my eye though right away. It seems in theory not that hard to get, but I think we'll have to do a little bit of testing. So my first idea was to simply run into the Mauritania swamp. Slight issue though, on my main account, I've already lit the fire that prevents food from rotting, and I don't think there's any way to turn it off. So we're gonna have to hop onto another account here, one that hasn't done that quest. So we're on another random account that has Priest in Peril done, and here's the first strategy. We're gonna take a full inventory of jugs of wine. I know, weird, I feel like a jug of wine is the one thing that the gas shouldn't be able to rot, but I digress. They can for whatever reason. What we're going to do is we're just going to run from Canifis south into the swamp and just see how quickly we can turn our entire inventory into rotten food. Okay, so we're in the swamp and there are some gas around us. So there are a number of them here, but they don't seem to attack you that often. Okay, well there's one rotten food. But although they're surrounding me and they look terrifying, they're not activating their ability very frequently. Okay, this looks like this might be a bit slower than I thought, although I do have another idea. Okay, there is one other place that there are a number of gas that could potentially rot your food, and that's in temple trekking. Now, from what I recall from temple trekking, the gas there are a bit different than those in the Mortmire swamp. Now, I think they will be more effective at rotting our food, but there's one problem. There's a bit of RNG involved in whether or not you run into that event. I can't really remember how common it is, but I think it's worth a try. Not to mention that temple trekking is profitable in other ways, so all in, this might actually be a pretty good method if we can rot a substantial amount of food per hour. What a statement. So I'm just going to try a very basic run with my Mauritania Legs 3 and the crafting cape and a full inventory of wines. So we're going to teleport to Berg de Rot, we're going to take a hard temple trek, and we're going to take route number 1. Now, if for any reason I get stuck during the trek, which is pretty common, I'm going to teleport right back to Berg de Rot and jump right back into a trek. Alternatively, I could bring a hammer and knife and some free inventory spaces, but I'm not sure if that's going to be worth it. I think just teleporting out and redoing it is going to be a little more effective. Okay, there we go. We found a ghast encounter, and yep, for whatever reason, these ones will activate every second or two, where the ones in the swamp seem to be on like a 20 or 30 second delay. Like, look how much quicker my food is getting rotted. We're just gonna run around in circles and yeah, oh, easy. We're literally turning wine into money, or rotten food, which we can sell for like 4,000 each. So a full inventory should be worth around 100k, which is pretty good considering it only took us a few minutes to find this encounter. So there we go, a full inventory of rotten food, looks beautiful. From here we'll teleport to the crafting guild or any other bank really. We'll chuck it in the bank and we'll repeat that. Okay, so I actually went ahead and switched up my gear a little bit. We're bringing some combat gear, not much, just a whip and a defender. And that's because you do sometimes go through the entire temple trek, and other times you will run into the nail beast encounter. Although that's not strictly what we were trying to do here, it's so much money left on the table that I think it's definitely worth to bring a whip. Killing the 5 nail beasts is worth about 50k on its own, so we're going to occasionally run into that encounter. We might as well do it as well. Now, if we happen to do the entire temple trek, which does happen sometimes, we'll be able to claim a reward, and we're going to take bowstrings. I think that's just the most profitable option. So yeah, we're going to try this out for an hour to begin with, and we'll see how many rotten food we can actually get. Okay, so it's been pretty much an hour, and we've gotten one last ghast encounter. There we go, another inventory of rotten food. We're going to teleport out, So how much do we get in a full hour? Well, we had a bit in the bank already, but once we subtract what we had there already, we were able to rot 350 pieces of food in a single hour. If we can sell that for 4K each, that's about 1.4 mil just in rotten food, on top of another 500K in bowstrings and nail beast nails. So we're approaching about 2 mil per hour, rotting food and temple trekking, which is actually really damn good. I'm gonna try this for another hour or two, maybe collect 1,000 rotten food, and then we're gonna try selling it off. Alright, so with this last inventory, that should bring us up pretty much to the 3-hour mark. And in that time frame, I was able to rot pretty much 1,000 food. So around 1,000 every 3 hours, not bad. We'll finish up this inventory and teleport back to the Grand Exchange. After depositing, we're at 1,001, so pretty much right on the mark. On top of that, we also ended up with 115 nail beast nails and around 4,000 bowstrings just from passively doing temple trekking. So this should actually be pretty damn good money. Alright, so it didn't take too long. I found a couple people who are willing to buy my rotten food. They're going to pay 4,000 each, so we're going to sell these for 4 mil in total. Also throwing in some spooky eggs. Now at the time, there was multiple people buying rotten food for this price point. Keep in mind that the price people are willing to pay will vary a lot. Once someone finishes up their collection, they may no longer want to buy rotten food, so definitely check in advance what items people are looking for, but I was able to sell this for a pretty tidy 4 mil. Okay, it looks like my Tumican Shadow offer still has not come through. Now for the remaining items, we're able to sell the nail beast nails for around 12k each, or about 1.3 mil, somewhere around there. And we're going to sell the bowstrings for around 400k, which means all in, we're going to have made 6 mil in only around 3 hours of temple trekking and 3 hours of food rotting. So a really interesting method, but pretty damn good money per hour considering you really only need access to temple trekking, some combat levels, but for the most part, pretty low requirement. Okay, so now on to the next idea. This one actually is not involving an untradeable item, but it kind of does, and I'll explain. Now, a few months ago, there was a huge reveal in the collecting community on how to make a burnt umli, or a burnt umli wrap. And essentially, it involves draining your stats in a certain way that will allow you to have a chance at burning the umli wrap. It's a really rare item. Right now, they're actually worth about 3 to 4 mil for a burnt umli wrap. If you happen to have one, people will buy it for that much. Now, because of this, the uncooked umli wrap is worth a lot right now. It's worth like 12,000 each. So I was kind of curious, how much money per hour can you make just creating umli wraps? Now, the way they're made is with a raw umli, which you can buy from the Grand Exchange, but also a palm leaf, which you cannot. It's untradeable. You have to get it in the Kazari jungle. Now both of the items are right beside each other, so they shouldn't be too time consuming. So we're gonna go kill the umlis by hand and make the umli wraps. Each one we create is just 12k profit. Now this should be extremely profitable, assuming it's not too time consuming to collect these items. Okay, so I gathered a full inventory of the umli wraps. It took me about 10 minutes. Now, the only reason this is kind of annoying is because there are wolves that will attack you that are aggressive, so that definitely slowed me down a fair bit. And the spawns of everything is a little bit spread out, but overall, I was able to make about 350k in 10 minutes. That's pretty good, and we'll probably be able to speed things up a little bit as we practice more. So I kind of want to just try this out for an hour to see what the hourly rate is crafting umli wraps. Alright, I think this is going to be our final inventory. We're pretty much cresting the hour mark. I think we went over by about 5 minutes, but honestly, didn't really find a strategy that was more effective than just kind of running back and forth between a few umlis. The wolves will continuously be aggressive, which is annoying, but there's not too much you can do about it besides just pathing better. So that is going to be our final umli wrap. We're going to teleport back to Taibawana village. We'll go to the bank and we'll see how much we were able to collect. Okay, so in around an hour, I think more like an hour 15 minutes, I was able to get 186 raw umli wraps, which is a lot. Right now, these suckers are worth, I think, about 12,000 each. They've gone up a lot, mainly in part due to people wanting to try to burn them for either profit or just for collecting purposes. It looks like we can sell them for upwards of 13.5k each, but I'm able to just drop them in for 13,000, which is still 2.4 mil. Oh my god, we just auto-selled some of them. Okay. Well, we'll leave these to sell off and the nail beast nails for now, and we'll move on to another interesting method. Okay, so from the Discord, another item I noticed people were collecting is undead chicken meat and undead beef meat. These are only obtainable from the Mauritania farm patch. You can see here on the ground, it's a regular raw chicken, but they have a slightly different item ID, and they're kind of a rotten version of it. Now it looks like people are paying 2,000 or 2.5k each per raw chicken, and they're super easy to collect. We can just one-hit the chickens, and each time we kill one, that's 2,000 GP or more. They're not on the top of the pile, which is annoying. This method looks kind of time consuming, but considering the requirements to do this are incredibly low, you really just need access to Mauritania. Probably realistically need access to the ecto file, so Ghost Ahoy is probably required. But beyond that, it's as simple as just killing chickens, which is like the most iconic low-level moneymaker, except this time the chicken meat is worth thousands. So yeah, I might try this out for an hour. It's kind of click intensive, so I probably won't do it longer than that. But yeah, let's see how much raw chicken we can collect. Alright, we finally finished up with an hour of this method. Just a lot of clicking, so not my favorite from a technical standpoint, but the money is, I don't know, it could be worth it. So how much undead chicken was I able to collect in an hour? Well, just about 650. That was at a pretty quick pace, I would say, for the whole hour though. 600 or 550 might be a bit more realistic. But the real question is, how much are we going to be able to sell it for? Well, it looks like there's been a little bit of a bidding war recently over undead chicken and beef, and I think we're actually able to sell it for 3.5k each. Again, gotta reiterate, the price you can sell this for, it's totally dependent on what a few people are willing to pay. There's not a lot of volume for these items, but right now that's what we're able to sell it for. So 650 raw chicken is going for a cool 2.3 mil nearly. So we'll add another 2.3 mil to our stack. Now if we look at the Grand Exchange offers, both of them have completed. It actually only took a few hours. We sold all the wrapped Umlis for over 2 mil and all of the nail beast nails as well, which means we've now successfully earned a green cash stack, collecting some of RuneScape's weirdest items. Now you might think those items are weird and why would anyone pay tons of money for them, but you don't even know, that's just the start. Those are actually somewhat common, easy to obtain items relative to the entire world of the weird semi-untradable items. Now these next things here are items you can't even really specifically go for, so I'm really just mentioning these just in case you want to look through your bank and see if you have some hidden gems here. It's like looking through your old toys to see if you got some Pokemon cards or something. Now the first one I want to mention is something called the Bucket of Rubble. This is obtained during the Aid of the Myrick quest, and you're only able to obtain 5 of them per account, and it has to be a member's account. You obtain these by clearing the rubble in the Bergdorf basement, and once again it is tradable person to person, but you cannot sell it on the Grand Exchange. If you get a full bucket of rubble, that can actually go anywhere between 50k and 100k per bucket, so really expensive, but there's realistically only a certain amount you can get per account. Now the next one that's kind of funny is actually the fossilized dung. Fossilized dung is obtained from the reward chest within Tombs of Amasket, but you have to absolutely plank the entire raid to get it. You have to have less than 1,500 reward points when you finish the raid, so it's not very common unless you're intentionally griefing. And once again, it's tradable, but not sellable on the Grand Exchange, and people are actually willing to pay about 100k per fossilized dung. So this one, technically you could go out of your way to get it, but there's no way it would be worth it. But if you have some in the bank, people are willing to buy your shit. Another interesting one are leaves. Now these can vary a lot in prices, from a few thousand GP all the way up to 100,000 or more. Now the most expensive one, magic leaves, let's just say, are obtained by curing a diseased tree, which is not very common. But because it's so rare, people will pay, again, up to 100,000 gold for these useless leaves. Now finally, a more common one that more people would probably see on their day-to-day basis is a flyer. The flyer seems like it would be incredibly easy to get, but it's not. I've actually tried. I believe the only way to consistently get the flyer is from an imp, and it's dropped to the rate of 1 to the 64. Not tradable on the Grand Exchange, only tradable person to person. The most interesting thing about the flyer is apparently If you talk to men enough, there is a dialogue option that's really rare and they will hand you a flyer. But I stood there for half an hour talking to the same guy and never got one. So it's either really rare or I got unlucky. But if you do have some flyers in your bank, people are usually willing to pay 10K or more for them. And that's just, of course, scratching the surface. There are half-eaten pies, damp eggs, smelly unagi kebabs. I mean, the sky's really the limit with this, but again, the best way to know for sure, check in the Discord. Anyway, guys, I hope you found the video interesting. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Now, before I go here, I want to give a giant thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to Alejandra, Mitch Reinders, The Hybrid, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. You guys are awesome. I do really appreciate it. Also, thank you to Kapersky, YoYoSub89, and NDM0001 for being subscribed at the Runite tier. Thanks everyone again, and I'll see you next time.